Behind all the rhetoric, and there's a lot of that, I think,
there is.
over estate taxes debate could be the biggest question of all. Can we afford to do anything about it?
Are lawmakers already counting on all that revenue? Our Fox panel back to discuss, and we welcome Joran Brook from the Ayn Rand Institute. Joran, thank you very much. Let me go to you first. What about the argument? I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be. There we are. What about the argument, Joran, that this country needs a kind of economic mobility that it doesn't have? That is, where rich folks get poor folks get richer, etc. How do you argue that?
I mean, I think it's interesting because just this week a study was published by the Treasury Department that looked at wealth mobility in the United States. And wealth mobility is quite robust today in the U.S. People in the lowest income groups seem to be rising to the middle class and upper middle class, and sometimes
so it's already
into the
happening.
Rich categories. It's already happening, you know. And the more fundamental here is Warren Buffett talks about wealth as if it's some kind of it's owned by society. Wealth is owned by individuals, and those individuals should have a right to dispose of that wealth any way they choose to. He has chosen to give 30-something billion to the Bill Gates Foundation without going through the tax mechanism in Washington. He's not going to pay any taxes on that $34 billion. I want to leave all my wealth to my children. It's none of Washington's business what I do with my wealth. They taxed it once already when the wealth was created, when the wealth was made. Leave it alone. Let me decide how to dispose of it.
Mike Norman, whether you agree with how politicians run the country on the money they get from our taxes, Warren Buffett brought up an example where he said Leona Helmsley's dog was left $12 million from her estate. Now, if they repealed the state tax, the dog would have gotten $22 million, and the tax coffers are down about $10 million. So what do you think about Warren Buffett's concept?
I have to agree with Warren Buffett only because I don't want there to be a Norman aristocracy in this country.
Oh, Lord help us.
As much as I would like to have it. No, just kidding. By the way, I think his example of the football example he gave, that's silly because, look, the money you make, that's private property. If you own that university, you certainly can, you know, if you're the football coach and you own that university, you could make your son be the next quarterback or whatever. The
fans will smack you. But.
Well, look, it's private property. But I do agree with Warren Buffett. I don't think we have to create a plutocracy in this nation. I think there is something to be said for, you know, dispersing that wealth. And I think the revenues to the government, and go ahead, call me it. Call me it.
No, I'm going to go to Nicole. Nicole, the
socialist, go ahead, call me it.
I'm not going to call you a socialist. I'm not going to call you a socialist. But, Nicole, the point is, as Joran was saying, we have this incredible social economic mobility in this country already. The rich usually don't hold on to their family, to their money throughout their generations. They give it back, and the poor folks come up and replace them.
I mean, I think I was listening to Ben Stein earlier, and he suggested that they actually raise the exemption levels maybe to like 10, 20 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, that seems sort of like one of the best sort of scenarios here.
Compromise.
A compromise that would actually get through and make sense.
Peter Schiff, what do you think?
Well, you know, two things. First, I think the estate tax is a highly destructive tax economically. It makes it very difficult for entrepreneurs to pass on their businesses to their children.
It only affects 12,000 people, Peter.
Well, I'm saying that entrepreneurs, if you're making an investment and you want to make capital investments, you're going to be inhibited from doing so if your children are going to be forced to liquidate that business to pay the taxes. But more importantly, the legal aspects, I'm very troubled by the legal immorality here. You know, in order to tax estates, inheritance, what the government has done is they've levied an excise tax on the privilege of leaving your assets to your heirs. Now, it's not really a privilege. It's a right. If I own something, I have a right to give it away. But the government pretends it's a privilege only because that's the only way they can constitutionally tax it. Because they're not levying a direct tax on the gift. They're levying an excise tax of the privilege of leaving your assets to your heirs. And that's a phony privilege. It's a right. If I own something, I have a right to give it away.
Quickly.
From 1946 until 1980, the average tax for the top income bracket was about 88%. We created thousands, hundreds of thousands of businesses, so it did not stifle innovation or entrepreneurship.